Hey, I'm not surprised, motherfuckers.
What's up, guys? We're the Courtside Soundoff podcast today. I'm Josh Evanoff. He's Angel Ortega. There's a whole lot of stuff to talk about today. UFC, BKFC, Bellator, NBA, boxing, and then some really, really big boxing news to close out the show. Before I get into that, I want to talk to you guys about Fight Plus. Fight Plus provides a special selection of premium events from boxing, MMA, pro wrestling, and other combat sports. While tribute events from over 25 promotions 30 days after airing. Fight Plus includes organizations like Brave FC, Unified MMA, UC MMA, CCW, BKB, FSW, BCB Boxing, Kunlun, and much, much more are available for your viewing pleasure. Cancel at any time. If you guys want to get a free 7-day free trial, you can go through the links that are available on our YouTube, our Podbean, our website, and you can find us. You can find the links and get 7 free days of fighting. If you don't cancel after 7 days, you will be charged. But speaking of Fight TV, happening this Friday and going a lot under the radar is BKFC 11. And honestly, I'm super hyped for it. Now, let's be clear here. This is not included with Fight Plus, but however, it's still a really, really dope main event. Isaac Valley Flag, who is former UFC vet, former Strike Force veteran. He's 3-0 in BKFC, and they were fighting in the welterweight tournament. Super welterweight tournament, excuse me. He's taking on Luis Palomino. Luis Palomino is most known, he's fought in Bellator. He's fought guys like Eve Edwards. He's fought guys like Darren Cruikshank, Pat Curran. He fought in the original Bellator 1 card years ago. Probably best known for his 2 wars with Justin Gaethje. He fought Gaethje in World Series of Fighting twice. Both fights were amazing. The first one was so good, they, for no reason, Palomino got knocked out in the 3rd round. They just went, oh, you know what? Let's do it again 3 months later. For no reason. He's 1-0 on BKFC. They're fighting in the main event. That's going to be an awesome fight, and you guys should check that one out on Fight TV. UFC Fight Island 2 happened last Saturday night. In the main event, Deiveson Figueiredo murdered Joseph Benavidez. There's no real other way to say it than that. It was a ruthless beating from the bell, from the first bell. He knocked him down with, I believe, the first right hand that landed. He knocked him down 3 times en route to getting a rear naked choke submission, putting him to sleep inside the first round. The final image of Deiveson Figueiredo cranking on the rear naked choke, and Joseph Benavidez's bloody face. He's out cold, looking at the camera. It's probably one of the most horrifying things I've ever seen in MMA. Obviously, an amazing performance, but how surprised were you by Deiveson Figueiredo? Because I'm pretty sure we both picked him to win, but I don't think even after the first fight we would have expected to be so dominant.
It's insanity, man. Great performance, like you said, once again. The submission, I knew the game was there. I didn't expect it to go there. I thought it was going to be on the feet the entire time and he was just going to, knock him out, TKO. But he ended up pulling it out, showing another aspect of his game to his competitors. Definitely a scary man now because of that. And, and it was, even then when he did get it to the ground, Joe held in there and got out of the submission with twice, maybe 3 times. And then at the end, he just wasn't able to get out of it. But granted, the punishment and being on the ground might have been just too much at that point, and it would have been too hard. It would have been, at that point, I think it don't matter what it was, it would be too hard for him to come back from that.
Yeah, and honestly, I wasn't expecting the fight to go to the ground either. I figured it must be a stand-up battle. I figured if it went to the ground, it'd probably be Joe B trying to take it there. Instead, it went to the ground, I'd say, for the majority of it. He went ahead and, he knocked him down multiple times. That's how it got there. And he, credit to Joe B, he got out of a lot of submission attempts, but in the end, it was too much. He accumulated way, way too much damage for him to survive. Knocked down 3 times, bloodied up, all in the course of 1 round. And Deiveson Figueiredo, and new UFC flyweight champion. It's a damn shame we're not going to get to see him against DJ or Cejudo or anything like that. But still, we'll talk about fights for him later on. But still, I think he's going to be champ for a long time. And the co-main event, Jack Hermansson submitting Kelvin Gastelum, a shocker here. In the first minute of the fight as well, Kelvin came out. I thought Kelvin looked in the greatest shape he's looked in a long time. Jack Hermanson came out. They both landed some good stuff on the feet. Not that it really mattered because it lasted all of a minute. And then, I believe Jack Hermanson went for a takedown. Kelvin reversed. Kelvin landed on top, landed a couple punches on the top, tried to stand up. Jack Hermanson grabbed the heel, got the heel hook inside of a minute. There's a lot to take away from this, but how impressed were you with Jack Hermanson? Because I feel like beating a guy like Kelvin I feel like this is his best win, right? I mean, Jacare was a good win, but Jacare was 40 years old. He's on the downslope of his career. David Branch was a good win, but similar story. Beating a prime Kelvin Gastelum kind of has to cement his place as a top 5, right? Like, generally speaking.
No, you're absolutely right. I wouldn't say I mean, for me, it wasn't expected. I thought he would win, but like you said, it's the way in which happened and how fast. I mean, I didn't think it'd be first round. I didn't even know if it was gonna be. I wasn't even sure it was gonna be a submission. I thought they were gonna have a good back and forth. I thought maybe they play kind of smartish and it'd go the distance, but not the case. Not the case whatsoever. Like you said, the reversal. I mean, that was impressive. That's a big man there. He turned that around on, and the heel hook submission. I mean, yeah, there's some people giving him a bit of hate, but he caught that real quick. I mean, that was crafty, and well played from him.
Yeah, I wasn't surprised that he won. I was saying last week about how I think it's one of the harder fights to pick on the card and one of the harder fights to pick all year, but I was super impressed by how quick it happened, man. Like, he went ahead and he got that almost immediately within the first minute of the fight. Like, it felt like it wasn't even a fight. Like, I was just in shock. Like, it took a minute to register what had just happened. I'm like, wow, Kelvin Gastelum, he's former title challenger, and he was done almost immediately. That's insane. But shout out to Jack Hermanson. He's got to get a top guy soon. Like, Cannonier doesn't make sense because he already lost him, but I'm thinking probably the loser of this week's main event. We'll talk about that later. But is there anything else on the undercard that you wanted to talk about? I thought there were some really good performances.
Oh, there was. Can I highlight one from the main and the prelim?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Okay, so the fight to start out, the main card, Askar Askarov, man, that fight as a whole. Maybe you look at the stats, it doesn't. That was a great fight. That was a great fight. I was absolutely entertained the entire time. I was really impressed by both guys. Both guys were super fun to watch. Both styles were super interesting in their own right. Credit to those two. I thought it was fun. Maybe someone else maybe doesn't enjoy it as much, but personally, I thought it was a really fun fight to watch.
Yeah, honestly, that was one of my top fights on the card. Alexander Pantoja, who I was really looking forward to, man. Like, Askar Askarov was obviously a really talented guy, undefeated heading in, but Pantoja was the guy I was really looking forward to. Pantoja has been coming off of a few really, really good performances. Knocked out Matt Schnell. Now, we did lose it to Figueiredo, but before that, beat Wilson Hayes, beat Olka Sasaki, and beat Brandon Moreno. So I thought, maybe he gets a win here. He gets a rematch with Figueiredo for the title. Instead, Askar Askarov flipping the script, getting the win, and now, unbeaten in the UFC. So shout out to him, 12-0-1. And what was the one on the undercard you want to talk about?
Grant Dawson, the young Grant Dawson. What a solid performance, at a young guy, hasn't been pushed too hard yet by the UFC. I think they've done a good job in developing him, especially since he came through the Contender Series, right?
I believe so, yeah.
Just a well-rounded fighter, like pleasant to watch, smart, made the right decisions, and did his thing in there, and it was just a masterpiece by him, I think. He was disappointed in himself for not getting the finish, but hey, man, that's not always, you don't always have to get a finish to have, a very entertaining, a great fight. And he was getting some love from Paul Felder there at the end, so that was kind of, I'm sure that kind of reassured him.
Yeah, he dominated, and Naden Aramani he's a pretty good fighter in his own right. I believe he's a former Cage Warriors champion, and he's been around the block, but shout out Grant Dawson, man. 16-1 in his career, undefeated in the UFC, 5-0 in the UFC, I believe. That kid, now he does have to figure out where his home's going to be, either at featherweight or lightweight. He's missed weight twice in a row, I think. But still, that kid has a lot of potential. A couple ones I wanted to personally talk about. Joel Alvarez defeating Joseph Duffy. Now, that one was not, shout out Joel Alvarez. He's a kid with a lot of potential. Young kid, 27, 17-2, won 2 fights in a row, both be a finish. Obviously, Joe Duffy is his biggest win. Joseph Duffy retiring after the fight, and, we talked about last week about what happened if Joe Duffy potentially lost, and he ended up retiring 3 losses in a row, all really, really bad, but still ended his career 16-5. I wonder if he goes back to boxing after this. He seemed like he had potential in boxing, 7-0. Shout out Joe Duffy. He had a great career, and I remember him coming into the UFC. There was so much potential on that kid, man. Like, I think he started off 5-1 with his one loss being to Dustin Poirier, and on the feet he made Dustin Poirier into a panic wrestler. Like, he was dominating on the feet, but still, that's a tough loss for him. But he did have a great career. The one I want to talk about the most is Arman Sarukian defeating Davi Hamos. Domination, man. Like, this kid is 23. He's from Russia, and he's 15-2. He has one loss in the UFC. He took Islam Makhachev on short notice. Obviously, Islam Makhachev, top 15 guy, one of the dark horses in that division, and he nearly beat him. After that, he beat Olivier Aubin-Mercier, and then he took a year off. And he's a wrestler. He's a kid who his entire thing's been wrestling. Came back and he dominated Davi Hamos on the feet. He's a veteran of the sport, man. I mean, he's 33, been fighting in the UFC for years at this point, like 4 years, 5 years, and he just dominated him. So shout out to Arman Sarukian, and that kid has a lot of potential. Still only 23 years old. Now, moving on to the card this Saturday night. Now, I think overall Fight Island cards, outside of 251, which is a given, I think this is probably the best card overall. I mean, we're talking Robert Whittaker. We have a middleweight fight in the main event, which is 2 contenders. A light heavyweight fight between 2, future Hall of Famers. Gus going up to fight for Doom, former champion heavyweight. 2 top 10 strawweights between Esparza and Rodriguez. 2 light heavyweight contenders, not contenders, but prospects between Antigulov and Craig. Oliveira is fighting Peter Sabata. There's so much to talk about here, but we just start off right in the main event. Robert Whittaker, the Reaper, taking on Darren Till. Obviously, Robert Whittaker was the champion, lost the belt to Israel Adesanya at UFC 243 last October. He has not fought since then. He's taking on Darren Till, who made his successful middleweight debut at UFC 244 in November. Now, this is going to be a tough fight for both of them. Darren Till, obviously, he did beat Kelvin Gastelum via split decision, but he seemed to be a lot more calm in there. Darren Till is a bit more of an explosive striker, so to say. Stephen Thompson, Dom Cerrone fights are kind of an example of that, and like just moving forward a lot of the time. He was pretty content. He lost 2 fights in a row before that very badly before getting the Gastelum win. He was very patient. I thought he showed a lot of improvements in his game. But on the other hand, Robert Whittaker, that one of the greatest middleweights of all time. Now, obviously, in my opinion, defeated Yoel Romero twice, beat Derek Brunson, Jacare, Uriah Hall, Brad Tavares. So many names on his record. Who are you leaning towards in this one? Because this is a really hard fight to pick in my mind, obviously, because we haven't seen Darren Till a whole lot at middleweight, but also how is Robert Whittaker going to look coming off of by far the worst loss of his career?
I mean, it was for me, it was unexpected. I went into that fight thinking it was going to be a hard fight for Izzy. It seemed like quite the opposite, in there.
You could argue outside of Brunson, it's the easiest fight he's had in the UFC.
Yeah, I mean, and against Kelvin, I mean, Kelvin gave him a lot more trouble. Kelvin almost had a moment of where he, hurt him. It was a bit scary there for him for a second. It's still remember Kelvin hurt him. When they're up against the cage, it's unforgettable because it was such a close fight, and it made me think, against Robert. But it almost makes me wonder, is Robert maybe not the same after those, 2 fights with Yoel and now that fight with Izzy, It makes me wonder that, At this point, 26 fights into his career, soon to be 27. Is it still there? Is everything still all right? Is everything still kind of holding up the same? Or is he maybe starting to, some of what he's taken throughout the years is it starting to come back? Fighting all those fights. I don't know. Maybe I'm pulling a little too hard. Maybe the Izzy fight was a one-off thing. Maybe that just Izzy just came out hot. Showed who he was. I'm really torn apart because I don't know if that's a factor right now. That's my big issue right now with picking this fight. And I think after this fight, we'll know if that's a reality. Personally, I think that's what this fight will show me for Robert. I think. Well, what were you gonna say? My bad.
I was gonna jump in real quick. I was gonna say I think that's a legitimate thing to fear, especially because Robert Whittaker's taken a lot of damage, and it's not even. You can argue Yoel Romero played a role in that, but he's taken damage in fights before that too. I mean, he's not an old guy, but still, whenever you're a fighter like him and you're moving forward the entire time, you're not brawling, so to speak, but you're definitely striking. You're not like a wrestler who's going to try not to take much damage. He's been around in the game, man. I mean, Stephen Thompson knocked him out years ago. Uriah Hall and him had a great fight at UFC 193. Brunson, landed a lot of shots on him, but he ended up sustaining. That was an awesome fight. You actually rewatched that one. I watched that yesterday. Anyways, but yeah, that was an awesome war. Brunson landed some good stuff on him. Jacare didn't land anything on him, but his two fights with Yoel Romero probably took years off his life. Like, if we're being completely honest. And then he's had injuries before that, like before and after that fight. And then obviously Izzy put him out cold, so it's definitely it's a tough thing to see how he's going to come back from that. You know what I mean? So I understand your fears there.
Yeah, and I won't say that dictates my whole opinion, but like I told you, I think like however the outcome of this fight is, will show us, if Robert is still fully there, or at least mostly there, or whatever you want to call it. But no matter what, this is a hard fight to pick. This is probably so far throughout the year, we've said card after card, the UFC's done it again, UFC's done it again. They made another hard. This is the hardest out of all of them so far this year. This is the hardest to pick. I truly believe that. I don't think that you can easily pick one here without giving credit to the other. Now, granted, Darren's only been in middleweight for one fight and beat Kelvin. But granted, Kelvin just lost his last three. But if you look at Kelvin's last three, they were legitimately. It's what is it? Israel.
It's Izzy, Till, and Hermanson.
Yeah, all guys who are right up there at that weight class, and it's not like he's getting mauled, At least I wouldn't say that.
Yeah, not at all.
Yeah, and in the submission, it was he caught him good, didn't get away from it well enough, whatever, right? Yeah. But like I said, there's aspects I fear that make it. And I mean, fight it's gonna be, we're gonna. I mean, this is gonna put Till's stock up in middleweight, like up there after this. This is a big deal. A lot of the things that are kind of happening, in the previous fight in middleweight, this fight now. There's a lot of tiny factors that are gonna lead into a lot of things going forward. So that's what I'm saying. A lot of these tiny things are gonna come into play. But kind of to get off my little rambling train there and kind of give you a little bit of my thoughts on what's going on. I think I'm gonna stay with Till. I think Till's gonna keep riding this middleweight hype. Finally, he's at his proper, what he believes is his proper weight class. He looked good in his workout. He looks great. Looks energetic. Like I told you, just those tiny little things with Robert reward me. I mean, the talent's there. It's just I'm just not sure if it's the same guy anymore.
Yeah, and I think that's a legitimate fear. Is if he can even sustain the punishment anymore? Because some dudes. Here's the thing about MMA, and here's the thing about most sports in general. Some dudes peak early, some dudes peak late. And a guy like Robert Whittaker, we don't know if he's hit his peak yet. But it seems that way, right? Like, obviously, not even talking about Izzy. Like, if he's going to fight guys like Paulo Costa and he's going to have to eat a bunch of shots, will he be able to do that? Now, I don't think he'll get knocked out by Darren Till. Darren has great power. But if we're going off the Gastelum fight, he's becoming more of a patient striker. And that's probably going to be the case because, Woodley knocked him down and nearly put him out. And he took a lot of punishment in there. And then, obviously, Masvidal put him out cold, and he took a lot of punishment there. And it seems like after that, he might become more hesitant. Obviously, we're only judging it off of one fight at middleweight against one of the hardest hitters in Come Gastelum. But I'm maybe looking into that too much. But I'm going to ride with the Reaper here. I just think Darren Till's, like, even they had their face-off this morning. Darren Till is still going to be a huge middleweight. But I just lean Robert Whittaker. I think he's going to push the pace. I think he's going to land the better shots. We don't know. Like, Darren Till did a good job of head movement and staying on the outside of Kelvin Gastelum, who's a much shorter middleweight. I don't know if he's going to be able to do that against Robert Whittaker, and if he does, will he be able to take the punishment that he couldn't near the end of welterweight? Like, I feel like we're talking a lot about Robert's chin and if he could take the punishment, but Darren Till's also coming off of some really, really bad fights in a row where he took a lot of punishment. So I feel like it's a legitimate concern for both guys. Do you think if Darren Till, I am picking Robert Whittaker to be fair, but do you think if Darren Till wins, does he get a title shot? Obviously, middleweight has a lot of stuff going on right now, but, Paulo and Izzy are fighting in September. He's only a few months behind that. Do you think he gets a title shot if he wins?
I could see them pushing for it, but maybe they want him to fight one more person to cement it, and then they'll do it. Because I imagine that Paulo Izzy fight might need a break in between. In theory.
Fair enough. Do you think if Robert wins, do you think he's even close?
They might push for it. I think they could give him a good argument, but at the same time, the way that fight ended, I don't know, man. I don't think the UFC would maybe be too hot on it. Maybe they give him another chance, but I think they try to look for a contender more than anything. That isn't Robert.
Yeah, fair enough. Moving on to the co-main event. This one does not have as many storylines heading into it, and it is not going to have any title implications coming out of it. However, it is still a fight between two future Hall of Famers, and you can argue two of the greatest light heavyweights of all time. Little Nog, Antonio Rogerio Nogueira, taking on Mauricio Shogun Rua. Shogun, he's a guy, he's been around for a long time, former Pride middleweight Grand Prix champion, I believe, and former UFC light heavyweight champion, but ever since he lost the title to John Jones in 2011, it seems like he's been on a downward spree. Until, funnily enough, despite looking older, looking more war-torn, he's only lost one of his last 6 fights, if I have that correct. He beat guys like John Vellante, also Little Nog in that stretch, John Vellante, Tyson Pedro. He had a split decision draw with Paul Craig in November. His only loss in that stretch is to Anthony Lionheart Smith via knockout 2 years ago, and Smith ended up challenging for the title after that. Worth noting, these two have fought twice before. Shogun's won twice, but, we've seen fights where the third fight ends up going to the person who's on the losing side, Tito Ortiz, Chuck Liddell, and also Rampage Vanderlei Silva. Little Nog, on the other hand, has been he's not nearly as active. He's gone on record saying this will be his last fight, but he's only fought a couple of times over the last few years. Shogun's been a lot more active. Shogun's, pretty active, fighting once or twice a year. Little Nog, on the other hand, he fought once in 2019, once in 2018, and then outside of that, twice in 2016, skipped 2017 as a whole. In his last, 6, he's only won 2 of them, Patrick Cummins, Sam Alvey. Sam Alvey's not even a 205-pounder, so it's debatable. His last fight was a knockout loss to Ryan Spann. History-wise, it says that Shogun's probably going to win. Shogun's been that more active man. He's been the better-looking man as of late. But both of their fights, especially the first one, is one of the greatest Pride fights of all time. Do you have, before we even pick who's going to win, do you have any sort of excitement heading into this one, or do you think it's just a Bellator-esque main event?
It almost is that, isn't it? It's just not in Bellator. That's a good point. I mean, for what it's worth, it's, they get, well, I can't even say end the trilogy, because it's already one-sided,
Yeah.
But, it's cool for them. They get to co-main event. It's Shogun's last, came out on record, like you said, and said it's his last fight. Why not? One last time, one last dance. Let's have at it.
So who are you? Honestly, I don't have let me be clear. I was making a joke about it being a Bellator main event. I have no problem with this whatsoever. I would prefer both of these guys to fight each other than some young lion. I do not want to see Shogun versus Ryan Spann. I don't want to see Little Nog against Tyson Pedro. Now, Shogun did beat Tyson Pedro, but I'm not sure if that would happen again. So I don't want to see these guys against the young prospects. I'd rather see them fighting each other. I'd rather see legends fight, and we'll talk about legends fights near the end of the show. But I'd prefer this over the previous. But who are you leaning towards?
Dude, Shogun, man. I don't think history's going to change anything here. This is cemented.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and also go with Shogun, man. Shogun, it's hard for me to pick Little Nog because their two fights against each other have been they've been very close. You can argue that Little Nog won both of those fights. We're like one judge away from it being 2-0 Little Nog, you know what I mean? So, but still, Shogun is 2-0. I don't think this changes. I thought Shogun against Paul Craig looked bad, but also Shogun looks bad and yet wins almost every single time. I thought the last good Shogun performance was against John Vellante 3 years ago. Like, that was just a legitimately good Shogun performance where he looked great on the feet. That finish was incredible. Tyson Pedro, he won by virtue of Tyson Pedro, like, tearing everything in his leg in the first round, and still it took Shogun 3 rounds to finish him. Paul Craig, I thought he won that one, but which was strange. But Paul Craig's also, he took that fight on short notice. So, whatever. I'm going to stick with Shogun here. I think Little Nog is going to end his career on a loss, sadly. But, Shogun said he's going to end his career too soon, but let's play some hypothetical booking here. Shogun wins. Who do you think he ends his last fight on?
God.
He said he only wanted 2 more, and that was before Little Nog fight was made. So who do you think?
Boy, does it even matter to a certain extent? You know what I mean? Like, does he even care how he's gonna end?
Come on. You can't say you're not excited for Shogun to retire.
I mean, give the man a title shot, right? Ryan Spann's only ranked 14. Like,
right. it's like the Joey Diaz. Ryan Spann's available. Like,
actually no. It was Volkan Ozdemir.
You really think so?
Hear me out. It's not a bad fight. Volkan doesn't look bad nowadays. It still doesn't look bad. I mean, they're both old. Volkan's been in the UFC forever. It's kind of a fun fight. I'd be a fan of it.
It's been booked 2 times also. They were meant to fight twice by now. It just hasn't happened. So maybe third time's the charm.
Let's make it happen. Third time's the charm right here. Like, it's gonna he's gonna go 3-0. Let's make it happen, man.
Yeah. I asked you because I was curious thinking about this because I don't know who the hell Shogun fights in his last fight. Like, just looking at it, like, Lil Nog is the only guy in that division at this point who's kind of an old legend. Like, everybody from their eras is either retired or in Bellator.
Dude, like, Volkan's still in there, bro. Come on.
No, I mean, but he's not from that era.
But Volkan's been in every era.
He's got no time to worry about his age. I mean, he's been around.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
He's been around forever. But, like, just off the top of my head, Shogun, Liddell's retired. Tito is in Combate Americas. Lyoto's in Bellator. Dan Henderson's retired. Forrest Griffin's retired. Brandon Vera's in one championship. Chael Sonnen's retired. I have no idea who he fights. Like, Rampage is in Bellator. Like, I don't know who he fights to end his career. Good luck at UFC matchmakers on figuring that one out. But, yeah, shout out Shogun, man. I hope that Little Nog, I hope that both of them have good retirements. I'll put it that way. Now, is there anything on the undercard you want to talk about? Now, I know there's a fight that we're going to... Okay, let's just skip to the fight we're going to talk about. This one won't count for our official predictions because we only give predictions on the main and co-main. Alexander Gustafsson and Fabricio Verdum. How excited are you for this one? I'm surprised this is not the co-main event.
I mean, look, it's exciting, but the way Verdum looked last time out, man, that was rough, man. That was rough. And Gus hasn't fought that long ago. You know what I mean? It's only been, a year and a half, maybe removed?
It's been, about, actually only like a year and a month. I thought it was longer than that. He last fought in June of 2019.
Okay. For some reason, it felt longer. I was right about the year though. It's been a year. Yeah. He's been, retired for a year, whatever.
Give or take.
Give or take. And dude, he's not even he's not getting knocked out. Isn't looking bad. There's no reason for Gus not to win this fight,
Yeah, I mean, I do worry about what happens when the fight gets to the mat. And I do worry about the size, because it's one thing to train as a heavyweight. It's another to actual fight a legit heavyweight like Fabricio Verdum. But at the same point, Fabricio is 42. He's gonna be 43 this week, okay? For all intents and purposes, 43 years old. Gus isn't that old. Gus is only 33. He's going to have, 10 years younger, but he's never fought at heavyweight. He's coming off of back-to-back losses. Now, granted, top 5 due to the division, Anthony Smith and John Jones, but still back-to-back losses. His last win was in 2017. I mean, pick doesn't matter. I'm leaning towards Gus as well, but is there anything else on the undercard you want to talk about? There's a whole lot. This card is by far the biggest Fight Island card. Probably one of the biggest Fight Night cards I've ever seen. 15 fights.
Oh, man, dude. Well, I keep talking about the man on the prelim. My boy Tanner Bozer's back. Pats his hands in the heavyweight division. Dude, he's just a fun guy. He's fighting again. What has it been? 2 weeks since he's fought, 3 weeks, give or take. And he's back.
It's been less than a month, 3 weeks.
Yeah. So he's back. Quick hands, would not expect it from his image. Not trying to make any claims, but just unexpected. And he's just a cool dude, man, and he's back. He's a fun dude. He wants that Maury screen fight. He came to the island. He said set it up for the island. They didn't do it. Maybe after this win, they do it. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. You shouted out your boy Tanner Bozer. Let me shout out my girl Betch Kohea. Betch Champion 2020. It's gonna happen, boys. No, she's fighting Pianik and Keenan on the early prelims. That one, neither one of them are going to be contending for a title anytime soon, but that should be a fun banger. I mean, Betch Kohea has never been in a boring fight, but as for actual contender fights, Carla Esparza, Marina Rodriguez should be a fun one. Carla, her fights are 50-50 on if they're fun or if they're terrible. I think Marina Rodriguez's style is going to pull a fun one out of her, but we'll see. Paul Craig, Gizirmad Antagulov should be fun at light heavyweight. Antagulov, he's lost 2 in a row, but I still think he has some decent potential. Alex Oliveira, Peter Sabat is going to be a fun one. Francisco Trinaldo's back. The one I want, Kazmat Chimaev taking on Rizm Maki. Kazmat Chimaev has the possibility to make history here. If he wins, it would be the fastest stretch between wins in UFC history. I believe 10 days. 10 days ago, by the time the fight happens, 10 days ago, he would have fought on the UFC Fight Island 1 card. Got the dominating win, and he has potential to do it again, fighting a welterweight. So we'll see what happens there. I'm hyped for that kid, man. I'm hyped for him. He's got a lot of potential, and his debut was amazing. So we'll see what happens. Also, more MMA is happening this week, right? It's a busy combat sports week. It's insane to actually have a lot of stuff to talk about for, more than just UFC. Bellator 242 is going down from the Mohegan Sun Arena tomorrow night in Connecticut. In the main event, Ricky Bandejas taking on Sergio Pettis. There's also other stuff on the card. Jordan Mien is returning. Taiwan Claxton is returning. Aaron Pico is returning. Are you excited at all for Bellator's return?
Even when I keep up with Bellator for what it's worth, here and there Bellator will have a fight that piques my interest, and I'll ask you. I'll be like, Josh, what's happening in Bellator? Like this and that. So if it's that Sergio Pettis is fighting, I might check it out just because of that, because it's Sergio, and I kind of wish Sergio would have stayed around in the UFC, but it is what it is. Let it be. Hopefully he finds success in Bellator. So I'll probably check out his fight.
Yeah. I obviously Sergio Pettis in the UFC was one of the top guys at flyweight. Wins over John Moraga, Brandon Moreno, and his best win, absolutely Joseph Benavidez, UFC 225. He lost 2 fights and then ended up getting a win over Tyson Nam before leaving the UFC. Ended up signing with Bellator. He just thought it made more sense, especially considering this is around the time that the UFC was thinking about cutting the flyweight division. He's fighting in bantamweight in Bellator, but still a smaller guy. Could probably fight at flyweight or bantamweight. He beat the shit out of Alfred Kakashian in his debut. One of the most brutal knockout / submissions you'll ever see. He beat the hell out of him on the feet. Probably should have been stopped. Ended up choking him out cold with a guillotine. So shout out him. I think that fight's gonna be a banger. If you guys don't know Ricky Bandejas, he is a kid who had one of the biggest highlight reel knockouts in Bellator over. I feel really, really dumb for forgetting the kid's name. He trains out of Ireland, and he's Conor McGregor's teammate. James Gallagher is who I'm thinking of. He's 13-3, very young kid, lots of potential there. Two other dudes with potential to watch. Taiwan Claxic, 6-1, has one of the greatest knockouts in Bellator history with the flying knee. He made it wasn't a debut with the flying. I believe it was actually his debut with the flying knee. And he's 6-1, has some nice wins on his record. He was a part of the Bellator featherweight World Grand Prix, ended up losing to Manuel Sanchez in the opening round, but he rebounded with a win over Brandon Ecchio. Aaron Pico is the closest thing I'd say to an MMA prodigy. The dude's been training in MMA, training in AKA since he's been a child. He was a former Olympic wrestler, and he's one of the guys. He's still only 23. And he was the guy that started off his career on the Bellator NYC card and lost to Zach Freeman in 24 seconds. He ended up moving down to featherweight. He's done pretty well since then. He's still only 5-3, and he's kind of an interesting case because he's a guy that he's been fighting guys with 20 fights his entire career because they're like, this kid, he's a prodigy. He should be fighting these top dudes. His best wins against Leandro Higo, who's a former Bellator title challenger. But he lost 2 in a row, Henry Corrales and Adam Boric, who are both very good. Ended up rebounding with a win over Daniel Carey in January. Interested to see where he goes from here, taking on Soto Hatali on the opening fight on the main card. So shout out to Aaron Pico. The kid still has a lot of potential. We can see if he rebounds here and gets back on another winning streak. Moving on to the NBA. Yesterday was the first NBA scrimmage games. I watched 3 of them. In case you're wondering how starved I am for any sort of sport other than MMA, I love MMA. I love boxing. Both have been going on for the last couple months. I need something, bro. I also watched baseball this week, but the Royals suck, so I'm probably not going to watch much more. But the NBA, they had their scrimmage, and we got the first peek at the court, the presentation. They said they're going to have, 1,000. They said something insane, there's going to be 1,000 new camera angles. But we did see a lot of new stuff. Did you watch any of the scrimmage games, or did you at least see highlights yesterday?
I think I saw one thing. It was the thing you sent me on Instagram because I was at work, so I was able to enjoy that, sadly.
Okay, fair enough. I went ahead and watched it while I was working out, and I was paying attention. I ended up watching the Nets game in its entirety last night. I'm sure you saw the clip. What were your thoughts on the court?
I thought it was nice.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, I had no issue with any of it. I thought it looked all pretty normal, just smaller. It almost looked summer league-ish. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's what I thought. Because I saw a lot of people talking shit on it, and I actually thought the court looked sick. I actually thought it looked really,
it looks better
really
than
cool.
Summer League, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, I thought it looked better than Summer League. I liked the court in general. I liked a lot of the stuff, the presentation that they were trying to do. And you can see they're trying to work out the kinks. The broadcasting crew, they're coming back as well. So I liked a lot of what they did in the scrimmages yesterday. Hopefully we see more stuff come out over the next week of scrimmages, and they can work on little things to make the presentation better. And I don't know, man. Seeing a lot of those players, you can tell a lot of them are rusty. I was watching the Nets game, and the Nets, I don't think they passed the 20-point mark up until halfway through the second quarter. Now, it is the Nets, and I don't even think Jay Crossover played, but, some teams are going to have some work. The Clippers were a team that won yesterday. They looked pretty good. But the big topic for the NBA is bowl. Now, obviously, the scrimmages. This is not official starting. A lot of players are still just they're getting ready. They're getting in game shape. These games don't matter. They won't be counted on the official record, but certain players have come out and said that, yeah, I'm going 100% for sure. And one player is going 100% was Bol Bol. Bol Bol made his NBA debut, 16 points, 10 10 assists? No, 10 rebounds, 6 blocks. And obviously this is his first NBA action. I mean, he's not a highly rated guy, and we talked about potentially dudes who could come in who are going to have a big impact, even though they're not superstars. They're not LeBron, they're not AD, they're not, Giannis. Do you think this is a potential sign or, something that we could see later on for players to come in and due to the no crowd, due to the new atmosphere, they'll be able to have way more success than normal?
I'm sure that'll be a factor. I mean, I'm sure when it comes to, especially like young guys who maybe felt the pressure of the league, maybe they'll feel a little bit more, at home. But even though, and I still think, a lot of those guys have been playing in front of the big crowd, their whole life. I'd be surprised if any of them had any sort of, struggle like that mentally. But, it might be a factor to some of them. And it might be a factor to some players. We might see some players who just are just more comfortable in that setting where there isn't the crowd. But then we'll also see those guys, those characters who feed off the energy of the crowd and maybe won't be as, explosive or hype as they typically are. But we'll see how that plays out throughout this remainder of this season, if you can call it that.
Yeah.
We'll see the effects of it.
Yeah, we'll also probably see the effects roll over into next year because, I don't want to touch. Sometimes we touch on world events outside of sports. Apparently, the vaccine. There's been a lot of promising stuff on vaccine trials, and personally, I know a lot of people are skeptical about vaccines. I'd let them inject me with fucking motor oil if I could go to the gym without a mask at this point. So, we'll see if where they are with vaccines in terms of crowds. So who knows? Maybe the NBA year, they were estimating vaccine for like February, but it looks like it may be fast tracked. We're already seeing some get in the early stages of thousands of people are being tested, and some of them are having a lot of promising results. So we'll see what happens if there will be a crowd for the start of the NBA season, which is apparently going to happen sometime around Christmas. But as for the rest of this year, there will be no crowds outside of like family members. So, whatever. Personally, I think this is a sign that we're going to see, and it's something I was, thinking about certain players doing well without the crowd and in the new environment. Again, it's only a scrimmage. That did not count. But I think we're going to see that happen. And a lot of teams are still taking this time to mess around. I saw that Jokic got started at the point guard yesterday. He started to guard yesterday for their scrimmage. So you can tell a lot of teams are messing around. But I also think it's going to be a sign. I definitely think we're going to see a lot of teams working new stuff that we have not seen them do. I think we're going to see a lot of players that have not played very much having a lot of success. I think particularly shooters that they're not going to get in their head. They're just going to have like the open shots, and they're going to knock them down more often than I feel like they would if there's a crowd who's booing at them, who's yelling at them. Sometimes it's hard for dudes to tune that out. And honestly, Andre Roberson's coming back, boys. There's no crowd to boo him at the free throw line. He's going to go 100%. Going to go 100. You can quote me on that. No, but yeah, so that's all there is to really talk about the scrimmages. If you guys want to go watch the highlights of Bol Bol, the Nets getting absolutely destroyed. Actually, I don't know if they won that game. I'm going to assume they didn't because they scored 14 points in the first quarter. But I didn't end up finishing it out, but I watched the majority of it. But yeah, so scrimmages are interesting to watch, man. I like a lot of the presentation. At least they're not doing baseball, man, because I saw that Fox Sports came out this morning and gave a preview of what the MLB is going to do, and they're going to have fake digital fans, and it felt like I was living in Black Mirror. Angel, have you seen this?
No, I haven't. Is it bad?
Okay, you should go on Fox Sports Twitter right now and see this because it looks ridiculous. I feel like we're living in this weird Black Mirror dystopian universe because it wasn't even bad, right? I thought that the fake crowd looked good. It's not like Madden where it's just like cardboard, JPEGs sitting in the back.
Okay, I see it.
It looked more. It's so bizarre, right? It's weird, and I'm glad the NBA is not doing that.
You know what it reminds me? It reminds me of a video game, like 2K or Madden or
I was thinking
with the FIFA with the fake crowd in the back.
Yeah, I was thinking like something like the best fake crowds I've seen are like the WWE games because they're a lot more reactive, and like in Madden they're JPEGs. They're literal like things that barely move. I thought that like, wow, like it's better than a Madden crowd, not as good as some video game crowds, but it's definitely weird, right? Like it's gonna take some, like it's bizarre.
I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it. They said cheering, booing. Why are they gonna boo,
They're gonna
man?
do the wave though. They're gonna do the wave.
Why are they gonna boo, man? Why are they gonna boo? That ain't right, Chief. Are we trying to be? Aren't we trying to be trying to have some sportsmanship?
I'm gonna have some. Here's the thing that I wish they would do. You know how like some concerts have like there's fake Michael Jackson and there's gonna be a hologram Prince or whatever. You know what I mean? Hologram Tupac at Coachella. I'd like to do holograms for all the players so like they're watching this shit happen too. Like I think that would be hilarious. But
no, you're right, but man, I don't know, Chief. I don't know how I feel about it.
yeah, man, I'm glad the NBA's not doing that. Personally, I like their presentation right now, but we'll see if it gets better. Well, the fact that they're actually gonna let in like hundreds of family members will help the game a lot. Like honestly, I believe that, but I still thought it was pretty good even with no crowd. It took like all of a couple minutes to get used to it because there was still commentary and there was music, so it wasn't that big of a deal. But it's definitely gonna be weird in like the finals or something. Whenever somebody like let's say they hit like a game-winning shot, nobody there. But yeah,
but it'll be the bench, it'll be the team. They'll still get hyped. Come on.
Yeah, they'll get hype, and there were some hype moments yesterday. I think like PG drained like a shot. Like right as they were going to halftime, he drained like a 40-foot 3-pointer or something, and the bench like went all crazy and stuff. So I think there's definitely gonna be some sound. I think there's still gonna be hype. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm, definitely, I agree.
But moving on, that's all there is to really talk about basketball. More scrimmage games are happening today. King James Lakers are gonna have their first one, so that's gonna be interesting to see because he's one of the players who said he's gonna go 100 during the scrimmage.
We'll see LeBron.
So, yeah, we're gonna see LeBron during the regular season. It's funny because LeBron says he's gonna go 100%, but LeBron doesn't even go 100% during the regular season. Moving on.
Maybe
to
he
boxing.
is. Imagine if you imagine when he goes even more. You know.
He goes playoff. He goes playoff, Braun.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I doubt that's gonna happen. It would be really funny if it did. Anyways, moving on to boxing, Showtime announced their fall boxing schedule. Like something like 12 fights were announced. Now, I'm not going to go through all of them, but I'm going to list out a couple, and I want you to tell me which one you're most excited for. I don't know which of these are pay-per-view. I think that only 2 of them are actually pay-per-view, and the rest are on Showtime, like free boxing. The Charlo brothers are going to be headlining a card September 26th. Charlo taking on Derevyanchenko, and the other one taking on Rosario. October 24th, Gervonta Davis taking on Leo Santa Cruz in the main event. And then November 28th, Nonito Donaire is back. Which of these are you most excited for? Because I think... Oh, go ahead, actually.
I was going to say first 3, man. The first 3 you said.
The first 3 you said?
Yeah, I mean, the first 3, they're both fire, man.
Fair enough.
I'll see the Derevyanchenko fight a little less, actually, but I could still be.
Really?
Yeah.
That's the one I'm most excited for.
Really? I feel like that one could be good, but I'm kind of like, I feel like it could be hit or miss almost, but I feel like it'll still be good. You know what I mean?
So wait a minute. That's the one you're least excited for. That's the one I'm most excited for.
Well, I'm more excited for Rosario versus Charlo.
I mean, I'm really excited.
I just think of his upset potential because Rosario just, I think a lot of, I mean, at least I didn't know. I think it was considered an upset. I don't know. It's kind of 25.
Nah, it was totally an upset.
Yeah, comes in, beats the guy, like it was wild. So that's why I was like, I don't know. I think there's a good storyline there. That's why I like it.
Fair enough, but I'm just, I'm excited for Derevyanchenko. I'm a big fan of that guy. And I think that both of those are going to be a great card. I know that one's on pay-per-view, and I also believe Gervonta Davis is going to be on pay-per-view. I'm excited for my boy Nonito Donaire to come back as well because he had one of the best fights last year. That one's also going to be on a free Showtime card if you guys want to check out that one, months from now. But, man, I've been a Nonito Donaire fan, and it's for a really stupid reason. Ever since Fight Night Champion, he was the only dude at that weight class, which I thought was funny. because they only had one dude. It was the only guy at flyweight, which I thought was really, really funny. But, regardless, former champion, one of the all-time greats when we're talking like flyweight and one of the smaller weight classes. But, he is getting on the older side. He's 37, which is ancient for that weight class. But, Naoya Inoue, he had an amazing fight with. So we'll see what happens, man. Like, that was his last fight, and that was the fight of the year contender in 2019. So we'll see what happens. So, yeah, as they announced all of those fights, but the fight that we're going to cap off the show with is one that just got confirmed before we went ahead and started filming. That being, and we've talked a lot about this man's comeback. We talked about apparently some fake news that he was going to be fighting Evander Holyfield. Now we have official confirmation that Mike Tyson, Iron Michael Tyson, is returning to the ring to take on Angel's pick, Roy Jones Jr., September 12th, 8 rounds of boxing, pay-per-view main event. Angel, throw it straight to you. What's your excitement level for this contest?
It's pretty hype, man. Even during this exhibition, it's pretty hype. Iron Mike is back, baby. How about that? It's almost unbelievable.
It is like completely like unbelievable because it's been 15 years since he's fought. Like it's been a legitimate 15 years. He last fought in 2005. And that was a loss as well to who was it? Michael McBride, I believe. So, he's been gone for a long time, and he's coming back. He's one of the greatest heavyweights of all time. And for me, a lot of the excitement kind of comes from the fact that I did not want to see Holyfield fight. I was pretty audible about that on the podcast. I did not want to see Evander Holyfield. If you guys have listened to him talk lately, I did not want to see Evander Holyfield come back and fight Mike Tyson. He's a guy. He's much older. I mean, how old is Tyson? 30? Not 35. Holy shit. I meant 53. He's 53, which is old, but we've seen older dudes fight. Evander Holyfield's like 58 at this point, and took a lot worse beatings. He took a lot more head punishment. And he's taking on Roy Jones Jr. He is like 50. So in terms of old men boxing, you could do a lot worse. And I'm more excited for the fact that it's Roy Jones Jr. Like, is it just me, or I feel like a lot of excitement comes out of the fact that it's Roy Jones Jr., which is a fight that was talked about early in the early 2000s, but it was the one that got away. You know what I mean?
Now it hasn't. Now it's happening. Granted, are they in their best moment? Definitely not. But who cares? It's not about that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not about that. Overall, I gotta ask. Here's a fun part. Here's an interesting part about this as well. I don't know if they're going to be exhibition fights or I don't know if they're going to be real fights on the undercard. However, one fight that is in the possibility of happening is obviously said it's not going to happen, but we don't know if it's maybe he's just lying. But Tito Ortiz versus James Toney in a boxing match. Is that even better than the main event?
You can make an argument. Make an argument.
Yeah. A couple of follow-up details about this thing. It officially got confirmed with it's going to be sanctioned by the California State Athletic Commission. It's going to be 8-round exhibition, no fan in attendance, no headgear, 12-ounce gloves. Roy Jones Jr. actually, last time he fought, a lot of people think he's, I feel bad for Roy because a lot of people are like, Roy Jones Jr. coming out of retirement, and I'm like, man, Roy's been fighting consistently up until 2018. Like his last fight was on UFC Fight Pass, in a Pensacola, Florida card. He main evented, and he's still, whenever he retired, he was a decent guy. Like obviously he wasn't world championship caliber. The one time he fought a guy who was kind of like, ranked in the top, 25 was Enzo Maccarinelli in like 2016, and he got put out cold. But Roy still ended his career on 9 of 10 wins. A couple of follow-up stuff. I gotta ask, would you buy this pay-per-view? Now, because I saw that it's going to be happening, but the bigger surprise to me was that it's going to be happening on a pay-per-view main event. Because it's like pay-per-view has kind of been going out of style. So particularly in boxing, the only real big pay-per-view this year was obviously Tyson Fury versus Deontay Wilder. DAZN's come in and they've kind of made the subscription model a big deal. UFC pay-per-views happen all the time, but even then, they're putting most of their content on ESPN Plus, which is a subscription service. Are you a bit surprised that this is a pay-per-view? And in your position, would you buy it?
Only if Tarver is on the undercard.
You're cutting out a lot, bro.
I said only if Tarver was on the undercard. I was trying to be a meme.
Oh, okay. Only if Tarver was on the undercard?
Yeah.
Okay.
Besides that, I went to my Buffalo Wild Wings. It's now open where I have to wear a mask.
Well, hey, man. The vaccine, though. The vaccine's not going to...
The motor oil.
It's not going to be available. The motor oil. It's not going to be available by September 12th, though. Yeah, man. Is there a particular fight you're hoping that would happen between boxing and MMA fighters on the undercard? Like if you just have your dream outside of James Toney, you Tito Ortiz.
Oh man, dude? Just make Henry versus Ryan happen at this point. Like you pretty much have the meme and the money made there. You don't have to worry about any of the repercussions at that point. You know what I mean? Just give Henry someone. I mean, Henry talks shit to anybody.
That's true. Actually, I would not be surprised if that did happen on the undercard. But it seems like they're trying to make this a Legends thing, and Mike even launched like the Legends League for boxing or something, which I thought was interesting because I saw that happen last night, and I was like, oh, only a matter of time until the fight actually gets announced. It ended up being Roy, which I'm a little bit surprised about, but anyways, last part to end it. Who are you picking to win? Like if you had to side anyway, it is 8 rounds, so draw is a possibility. But if gun to head, it's almost impossible to pick this because it's it's an exhibition and all that other stuff. I don't care. I'm gonna make you pick. Who are you gonna pick between
Iron
Roy and
Mike is back, baby. There's no question about it.
So you're gonna pick Iron Mike.
I'm gonna stick with Iron Mike.
Fair enough, man. This is officially. It's weird to me. It's officially happening. Roy Jones just released the poster on his Instagram. It's weird to me. It's like it's an old style boxing poster. It's not like some UFC shit. Like it's like it's a vintage style poster. I can send it to you right now, but it's like you can tell they're trying to go for that vintage feel.
That's cool though.
Yeah, I think it looks pretty cool. It reminds me of posters from like the 90s or whatever. But, personally me, I'm also going to lean Iron Mike. Obviously, it would make more sense for Roy to win because he's been more active. But, man, Mike looks like a monster, and there's going to be no drug testing. I'm going to go Mike, man.
Same.
He's on that TRT. I don't even blame him. He's 53 years of age. But good for him, man. Make that money. I said it on Twitter, man. I don't care. Secure that bag. Good for them. Good that they're going to be on pay-per-view. There's going to be no fans in attendance, which imagine telling somebody like at the beginning of the year that Mike Tyson is coming back to fight Roy Jones Jr. in Los Angeles with no fans in attendance on a pay-per-view. That doesn't even compute. Like it doesn't. Imagine telling us in January that would happen. Like that doesn't make any sense. But it's happening, boys. We're gonna talk about it in the lead up because we're here for these meme fights, bro. Like the most people that have our biggest views have come off of meme fights. Deontay Wilder, Tyson Fury 2? Nah. Logan Paul, KSI 2? Hell yeah, bro. Apparently that's what our audience is into. But anyways, we hope you guys have enjoyed. Real quick, I meant to ask you, do you have anything else you want to talk about the subject before we close out?
No, man. I think we're good. I think we're settled.
Anyways, guys, thank you guys for listening as always. Courtside Soundoff. We're going to have some announcements as to where we're going to be going forward. We're not going to be leaving our current platforms, but more platforms we are coming to. I've been working with a couple of distribution podcast centers in order to push it out to more stuff, which I should have announcement either next week or the week after as to where we're going to be available onto more places if you just wanted to listen to it somewhere else. But currently we are available on YouTube, Spotify, Podbean, Apple Podcasts, iTunes. So if you guys want to listen to it, you can find us pretty much anywhere you can find a podcast. And after next week, you'll probably be able to find us even more. So I'm at Josh Soundoff on Twitter. He's at @AndrewTega_01 at Courtside Sound 1 on Twitter. Also available on Facebook and Instagram. Thank you guys for listening as always. So peace and butt grease. Mouse click.